Lyra floated gently through the wide halls of the Interstellar Academy, her forearms moving with careful grace as she balanced a stack of data tablets. Her skin shimmered with a soft blue glow, and her large eyes reflected the lights of the massive corridor. Everywhere she looked, aliens of every shape and color walked, rolled, or floated, all focused on their studies. Lyra had been chosen for a special program, a cultural exchange project focused on learning about Earth, a small, seemingly chaotic planet in a distant galaxy. While most students studied theoretical physics, alien biology, or advanced engineering, Lyra's task was different. She would study humans, their science, their behavior, and their methods. Many of her peers found humans inefficient or reckless, but Lyra, she was curious. Her first stop was the viewing room, a large chamber filled with holographic screens. Each screen displayed human history, their experiments, and their inventions. Lyra's eyes widened as she floated closer. The humans moved so differently than aliens. They used hands, mouths, and even their mistakes to explore ideas. They failed often, yet somehow kept discovering amazing things. On one screen, a human boy mixed two powders together in a small container. The powders reacted violently, producing a puff of colorful smoke that spread across the table. Lyra's four eyes widened. She leaned closer. "Humans really do that?" she whispered to herself. Behind her, a tall, silver-skinned alien with long antennas named Orcs snorted. "Yes, Lyra, they do that. And much worse. That is why humans are not highly respected among scientists here. They are reckless, chaotic, and sometimes dangerous." Lyra shook her head slowly. "But look at what happens. The reaction. It is beautiful. And it worked, didn't it?" Vorek rolled his eyes. "You have a strange taste. We value precision, not unpredictable chaos." Lyra floated closer to the screen. She replayed the scene. The boy's experiment had gone wrong several times, spilling powders and nearly burning a corner of the table. Yet in the final attempt, the mixture produced something new, a sparkling, shimmering crystal that no human had expected. Lyra felt a small thrill. Humans failed often, yes, but in their failures they created something extraordinary. After hours of observing, Lyra returned to her quarters. Her small room was neat, lined with instruments for measuring everything perfectly. Unlike humans, aliens preferred careful calculations, safety protocols, and exact repetitions. Lyra stared at her instruments. She wanted to try what humans did, but how? Her first attempt was cautious. She mixed two harmless chemicals from her alien supply, following strict protocols. Nothing happened. The mixture remained the same, bland and ordinary. Lyra frowned. The human experiments were always messy, unpredictable, yet they produced results that could not be planned. Her controlled methods were precise but dull. For days, Lyra studied humans. She watched videos of scientists like Nikola Tesla creating electrical inventions, of Marie Curie experimenting with strange minerals, and of astronauts improvising repairs in space. She noticed a pattern. Humans often ignored rules when curiosity took over. They failed, sometimes spectacularly, but always learned something new. Lyra's curiosity became obsession. She wanted to understand how humans thought. How could they be so careless and yet so brilliant? She began to take notes. "Humans do not calculate everything," she wrote in her log. "They take risks. They use failure as part of learning. Their creativity seems alive, unpredictable, dangerous, but effective." One afternoon, she watched a video of children building rockets from scrap materials. The rockets wobbled, crashed, and sometimes exploded. The children laughed, ran to fix them, and tried again. Lyra smiled, her four hands clapping softly. "Even children experiment like this," she whispered. "No strict rules, no perfect protocols, and they still learn so much." Her peers began to notice her fascination. Vorek, who had always criticized her, asked one day, "Why do you watch these humans all the time, Lyra?" "They are primitive. Their methods are foolish." Lyra looked at him, her eyes bright. "Maybe, but they are not afraid of mistakes. Every failure teaches them something new." "That is powerful." Vorek shook his head. "You are wasting your time. Precision is power. Chaos is weakness." Lyra only smiled. She did not tell him that in her dreams, she saw herself performing experiments like humans. Messy, unpredictable, and brilliant. A week later, the Academy held a demonstration of alien science. Every student presented their work. Lyra's peers showed controlled, perfect experiments that followed every rule. The results were impressive but predictable. When Lyra's turn came, she hesitated. Could she show humans' way here? Would the others understand? She decided to start small. On her table, she placed 2 harmless chemicals and began mixing them, not carefully but quickly without measuring everything perfectly. The mixture fizzed, popped, and released a small cloud of colorful vapor. Her peers gasped. Vorek looked furious. "Lyra, what are you doing?" "That is dangerous." Lyra laughed softly, a sound that reminded her of the human videos. "Maybe, but watch." The reaction created a tiny crystal in the center of the table. It glowed softly, spinning slowly. No one had expected it. The demonstration was a success, not the orderly. Perfect success her peers expected, but a creative, surprising result. After the session, Lyra floated back to her quarters, feeling excitement she had never felt with perfect experiments. She had tried a human method, messy, bold, unpredictable, and it had worked. Her heart, or what humans might call her emotional core, thrummed with pride. That night she recorded in her log. Observation: human experimentation is chaotic and risky, yet effective. Humans embrace failure as a tool. Their creativity comes from their willingness to break rules. I wish to learn more. Perhaps humans' way of thinking can teach aliens something new. Perhaps it can teach me something new. Lyra's fascination grew each day. She watched humans repairing machines without instructions, building devices from scraps and discovering patterns in nature by trial and error. She even began to mimic their style in small ways, drawing diagrams freehand instead of using perfect holographic schematics, testing hypotheses without overcalculating every step. Her peers were confused, even critical. "Why do you waste time on humans?" one asked. "Their methods are primitive." Lyra shook her head. "Primitive? No, they are alive. Their mind moves in ways ours cannot. They see possibilities where we see rules. That is strength." And so Lyra began her journey. Her fascination with humans was no longer just a curiosity. It was a mission. She wanted to understand how humans could be so daring, so chaotic, and yet achieve amazing things. She wanted to see if aliens, with all their technology and precision, could learn from this strange, reckless species called humanity. As she drifted to sleep that night, her eyes closed on the hollow screen showing a human child laughing at a small rocket explosion. Lyra whispered, "Humans really do that, and I want to know how." From that moment, nothing would be the same. Lyra's studies of Earth science had just begun, but already she felt the spark of something extraordinary, the spark of curiosity, the spark of chaos, the spark that humans carried within them. And for the first time, Lyra wondered if the galaxy itself might be missing something important by ignoring humans' unpredictable brilliance. The next morning, Lyra woke early in her small quarters. The shimmer of her skin reflected the soft lights of the Interstellar Academy, and her 4 arms stretched in every direction as she prepared her equipment for the day. She had made a decision. She could no longer just observe humans from afar. She had to try their way. Her first attempts, however, were difficult. Lyra's entire life had been trained in precision. Every calculation, every measurement, every chemical was handled with exact care. Aliens believed that perfect repetition and 0 mistakes were the highest form of science. Humans, she realized, did not care about perfection. They explored boldly, experimented messily, and embraced the unexpected. Lyra set up her alien instruments carefully but secretly decided to allow some chaos. She placed 2 substances together without measuring exactly, ignoring the usual step-by-step instructions. Her skin tingled with excitement and nervousness. Nothing happened. She frowned. In her alien logic, that meant failure. But she remembered the humans she had watched. They often failed the first time, the second time, and sometimes many times before something new happened. She took a deep breath and tried again, slightly changing the order of mixing, shaking the container gently, and allowing some air to enter. A faint glow appeared. Lyra's eyes widened. The chemicals slowly formed tiny sparkling bubbles that danced along the surface. She held her breath. Slowly, the bubbles expanded, then burst with a tiny flash, leaving a small, shining crystal in the center. Lyra gasped. It worked," she whispered. She could hardly believe it. She had broken every rule of alien science, allowed randomness, ignored perfect measurements, and something new had appeared. The thrill was addictive. Lyra spent hours repeating similar experiments. Sometimes they failed. Sometimes the results were dull or uninteresting. But occasionally something magical happened. Unexpected shapes formed, colors appeared, or energy pulses danced across the lab. Every success made her pulse faster. Later that day, she went to the Academy's library, a huge space filled with holobooks and holographic data streams. She wanted to learn more about humans' methods. She found stories of inventors working without plans, of explorers improvising solutions in dangerous situations, of children building machines from scrap materials. Each story confirmed her observation. Humans learned through trial, error, and improvisation. Lyra took notes furiously in her log. Observation. Humans often fail. They fail openly without fear. Each failure teaches them something. Their learning is not linear, it is circular, messy, and creative. They do not follow rules strictly, yet they discover remarkable results. While Lyra wrote, her peers passed by. Many of them paused to watch. Some frowned, whispering, "Why is Lyra obsessed with primitive humans? Their methods are inefficient." Lyra ignored them. She was already thinking ahead. She wanted to replicate humans' ways more completely. She wanted to see what would happen if she abandoned all rules and let curiosity lead her. Experiments. Her first full attempt at human-style experimentation was in the Academy's HoloLab, a special space where holographic simulations allowed students to test their ideas safely. Lyra set up a simple experiment, creating energy pulses from chemical reactions. She ignored measurements, mixed substances randomly, and even shook containers, something no alien would ever do in a real lab. The mixture began to bubble and hiss. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a small arc of energy jumped from the container to the air. Lyra's forearms flew up in surprise, catching the container just before it toppled. Tiny sparks danced across the surface of the lab. Her eyes glowed brightly. "Humans really do that," she exclaimed, echoing her earlier words. She could feel the same excitement that humans must feel when something unexpected works. Her heart, or her alien equivalent, raced. Other students rushed over. Some were horrified. "Lyra, that is dangerous," they shouted. Lyra laughed softly. "Maybe, but watch." She adjusted a holographic recorder to show the energy pulses clearly. The sparks danced and then condensed into a new form, a small shimmering orb that glowed softly. Her peers were silent, staring in awe. No alien had expected the result. Vorek appeared last, his antennas twitching. He looked angry. "You ignored all protocols. This is reckless. You could have caused a disaster." Lyra tilted her head. "I followed curiosity. I allowed failure. And look, it produced something new, something none of us would have planned." Vorek's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps. But humans do not follow rules. That is why they survive mostly by luck. This could have failed badly." Lyra nodded. "Yes, they fail often, but every failure is a step forward. They learn faster because they are not afraid to fail. That is the difference." Over the next few days, Lyra continued her experiments. She abandoned careful alien calculations more and more. She allowed randomness into her methods, tried odd combinations, and even experimented with strange movements, just like she had seen human children do with their devices. Some experiments failed spectacularly. Small flashes, loud bangs, or smelly chemical reactions. But each failure taught her something. She adjusted her approach, tried new ideas, and improved her methods. Slowly, she began to understand the logic behind human chaos. It was not careless. It was creative. It was learning through doing. Lyra also began to notice patterns. Humans did not succeed every time, but their minds noticed connections that alien logic often missed. They experimented quickly, adapted to unexpected results, and discovered possibilities aliens would never consider. Their failures were not waste, they were data. Their mistakes were not errors, they were clues. She shared her findings in her log. Observation. Human methods appear reckless, but they are designed for rapid learning. Each failure produces information. Each attempt, even if it fails, brings new insight. Humans are not inefficient, they are adaptive. Their creativity comes from embracing the unknown. As she recorded this, Lyra felt a sense of pride. She was not just copying humans, she was beginning to understand them. She realized that alien science, with all its perfection, had limits. It could calculate, predict, and control, but it rarely discovered something truly new. Humans, with all their chaos, could stumble upon brilliance accidentally, and then build on it. One afternoon, Lyra decided to test herself further. She set up a larger experiment, combining multiple substances without careful measurement. She allowed the reactions to move freely without interference. Sparks flew. Colorful vapors swirled. The reaction seemed out of control, but Lyra watched closely, ready to intervene if necessary. And then it happened. The mixture condensed into a glowing structure, almost like a miniature galaxy in her container. Lyra floated back, stunned. She had created something beautiful, something unexpected, something no alien protocol could predict. Her peers gathered around, whispering in awe. Vorek, despite his anger, could not hide his curiosity. "How?" he began, but Lyra only smiled. "I tried humans' way," she said softly. "I let curiosity lead and I allowed failure. That is why it worked. Humans really do that, and it is brilliant." That night, Lyra returned to her quarters exhausted but exhilarated. She watched more human videos, noting how inventors, explorers, and children approached problems. Each story gave her new ideas. Each video showed a lesson she could apply to her own experiments. Her fascination had grown into a mission. She wanted to learn everything about humans' methods. She wanted to test their ways fully, not just in small experiments, but in her entire approach to science. And she wanted to share her discoveries with the Academy, to show that humans' chaotic methods had value, even for advanced alien civilizations. Before drifting to sleep, Lyra recorded her final note for the day. Humans embrace failure. Humans explore boldly. Humans are messy, chaotic, unpredictable, and powerful. I want to learn everything I can from them. Perhaps by understanding humans, I can change the way aliens think about science forever. Lyra closed her eyes, imagining a future where alien laboratories were filled with sparks, color, and chaos, just like human workshops. For the first time, she felt a sense of excitement she had never experienced with precise alien methods. The galaxy seemed full of possibilities, and all because humans dared to try, dared to fail, and dared to succeed in ways aliens had never imagined. Lyra had spent weeks observing humans, studying their experiments and attempting to replicate their methods. Each small success had filled her with excitement, but she knew she had not yet truly embraced the human way. Her alien training had taught her control, precision, and caution. Humans, she realized, did not follow those rules. They trusted curiosity, improvisation, and their willingness to fail. Today, Lyra decided to take a bold step. She would abandon alien caution entirely and perform an experiment exactly as a human child might. Messy, unpredictable, and creative. She prepared her hololab, removing every instruction manual, every safety lock, every measuring tool. Her 4 hands trembled slightly, not with fear, but with anticipation. Lyra began by mixing substances without measuring. She poured, shook, stirred, and even allowed the powders to spill slightly onto the table. She observed each reaction carefully, adjusting only when something seemed about to go dangerously wrong. Sparks flew, bubbles formed, and colorful vapors rose into the air. For the first time, Lyra felt the excitement of true human experimentation, the thrill of stepping into the unknown. At first, nothing extraordinary happened. The mixture fizzled and popped, leaving a residue that seemed ordinary. Lyra frowned, but she remembered what she had learned. Humans did not give up at the first failure. They tried again, experimenting in new ways. She added another substance, this time shaking the container more vigorously. The mixture roared, producing arcs of glowing energy that danced around the hololab. Lyra laughed softly, exhilarated. Suddenly, the reaction condensed into a small, glowing orb, suspended above the table. It pulsed with light, spinning slowly like a miniature star. Lyra floated closer, her eyes wide. She had created something no alien scientist had predicted. Her hands shook with joy. Humans really do that, she whispered again, her voice full of awe. She understood now. Humans' chaotic methods were not careless. They were creative. Their willingness to fail, to improvise, to explore without instructions, produced results that were impossible to predict. Word of Lyra's experiment spread quickly through the academy. Other students gathered outside the hololab, whispering among themselves. Many were skeptical, some even critical, but curiosity drew them closer. Vorik arrived last, his antennas twitching in disbelief. "Lyra, you ignored every rule of science. This could have caused serious harm." Lyra smiled, watching the glowing orb hover in the air. "I did not ignore rules. I followed curiosity. I allowed failure. That is why it worked. Humans do not fear mistakes. They use them to discover new possibilities." Vorik shook his head. "You are reckless. Humans survive mostly by luck." Lyra tilted her head, considering his words. "Perhaps, but luck alone cannot explain their creativity. They observe, adapt, and try again. That is what makes them extraordinary. Chaos is not weakness. It is potential." Encouraged by her success, Lyra decided to push further. She designed a more complex experiment, combining multiple reactions in sequence. She arranged containers in a row, poured substances haphazardly, and adjusted the order on impulse. The reactions intertwined, creating a symphony of sparks, light, and color. Some containers fizzled, others exploded slightly, and a few produced unexpected new formations. Lyra's heart raced. She watched closely, learning from each reaction. When something failed, she noted it. When something succeeded, she celebrated. By the end of the day, she had created a series of glowing, spinning crystals and energy forms, each unique and unpredictable. Her peers were amazed. Some whispered in admiration, others in disbelief. Lyra had not followed any traditional method, yet she had produced results more creative and surprising than any carefully calculated experiment. Vorik finally spoke, his tone softer than before. "Perhaps there is something to your approach. It is chaotic, yes, but effective." Lyra smiled. "Humans teach us that rules are not always the answer. Curiosity, courage, and willingness to fail can create something new. We can learn from that." Lyra's success gave her confidence. She began to integrate more human-style techniques into her daily experiments. She improvised tools, mixed substances freely, and allowed reactions to proceed without constant interference. Sometimes her lab was messy, with spills and splashes everywhere. Sometimes she failed spectacularly. But each failure was a lesson, each experiment a discovery. One afternoon, she decided to attempt an experiment that no human she had observed had tried before, combining energy manipulation with chemical reactions. She arranged a series of substances, then used her alien instruments to create a controlled energy field around them. Unlike her previous precise methods, she allowed the field to fluctuate, letting the energy interact unpredictably with the chemicals. The reaction was spectacular. Sparks danced along invisible paths, forming patterns that looked like fractals in the air. Colors shifted and merged, producing hues she had never seen before. Small, glowing orbs emerged, floated, and then merged into a larger, pulsating structure. Lyra watched, her heart pounding. She had created a miniature self-organizing system, a phenomenon that no alien experiment had produced before. Lyra recorded her observations carefully. Observation. Human-inspired chaos allows systems to self-organize in ways precision cannot predict. Randomness combined with observation produces creativity. By allowing failure, I discovered structures that are beautiful, functional, and novel. Her peers, who had initially been critical, now approached with respect. They asked questions, studied her results, and even attempted to replicate them. Many failed, but Lyra encouraged them. "Don't be afraid to make mistakes," she said. "Observe, adapt, and try again. That is how humans discover." Over the next several days, Lyra's lab became a center of experimentation. Other students began to incorporate human-style methods into their own work. Small explosions, colorful reactions, and unusual creations became a common sight. The Academy slowly began to recognize that there was value in chaos, curiosity, and failure, principles humans had used for centuries. One evening, as Lyra floated, in her quarters reviewing the day's experiments, she felt a sense of wonder. Humans were not perfect. They made mistakes constantly. Yet, in their mistakes, they created brilliance. They challenged expectations, embraced the unknown, and discovered new possibilities. Lyra realized that humans' strength was not in following rules but in thinking differently. They were fearless in the face of failure, bold in the face of uncertainty, and endlessly curious. And that was something no alien civilization, no matter how advanced, had fully understood. She wrote in her log one final note for the day. Conclusion: humans do not follow rules as we do. They fail often, but they learn faster. Their chaos is creativity, their mistakes are lessons, and their curiosity is boundless. By adopting their methods, we can expand the boundaries of what is possible. Humans are not primitive. They are extraordinary. As Lyra drifted off to sleep, she imagined herself in a human workshop, surrounded by spilled chemicals, scattered tools, and glowing experiments. She could almost hear the laughter, the shouts of discovery, and the thrill of trying something new without knowing the outcome. For the first time, Lyra felt completely connected to humans, not as distant observers but as a fellow explorer. She knew that her journey was only beginning. The galaxy was full of mysteries, and she had found a new way to approach them, the human way. Her mind buzzed with ideas for tomorrow. New experiments, bolder methods, and unexpected combinations awaited. She wanted to push further, to see what other wonders she could uncover. And she wanted to share these discoveries with the Academy, to show that humans' chaotic genius could teach even the most advanced civilizations something new. Lyra smiled in the darkness, her skin shimmering softly. Humans really do that, she whispered. And now, I am going to do it too. With that thought, she drifted into sleep, dreaming of sparks, colors, and the endless possibilities of human-inspired science. The Academy's auditorium was larger than Lyra had ever seen, stretching across several floors with floating seats and glowing panels that displayed every corner of the galaxy. Today it would be filled with students and instructors from multiple planets, all eager to see demonstrations of the latest scientific discoveries. Lyra felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. For weeks she had experimented using human-inspired methods. She had allowed chaos, embraced failure, and discovered results that alien protocols could not predict. Now she would present her work to the entire Academy. This was the moment to show that humans' chaotic, curious way of thinking was not primitive. It was extraordinary. Her preparations were unusual by alien standards. Instead of neat containers and perfect holographic readouts, her tables were slightly messy. Colors, powders, and glowing liquids were arranged in no particular order. Her instruments were placed where they were easiest to reach, not in perfect alignment. Some of her experiments had small protective barriers, but she intentionally left others open, allowing reactions to move freely. When the audience arrived, many students whispered. They noticed the disorder, the unpredictability of her setup, and the lack of strict protocols. Some were skeptical. Orcs, who had reluctantly agreed to attend, observed with raised antennas, clearly worried.
Lyra, he muttered, this is unusual.
I hope you know what you are doing, Lyra smiled. I do. Watch closely. She began her demonstration with a simple experiment. She mixed a few substances without measuring exactly, shaking the containers lightly. Immediately sparks flew, colors shifted, and small glowing orbs appeared floating above the table. Some students gasped. Others leaned forward in fascination. Lyra explained, "These reactions are unpredictable, yes. But each failure, each variation produces information. Humans embrace mistakes, adapt quickly, and learn from them. That is why their methods seem chaotic, and why they often succeed in discovering new possibilities." Next, she combined multiple reactions in sequence. She allowed energy fields to interact with chemicals without controlling every movement, letting the results unfold naturally. The mixture produced patterns that shimmered and spun like miniature galaxies, forming structures that no alien could have predicted. The audience watched in silence, captivated. Orcs whispered to a nearby student, "This is impressive." "I did not expect such results," Lyra continued. She displayed a series of her most surprising creations, glowing crystalline forms, energy pulses that organized themselves into patterns, and miniature floating systems that seemed almost alive. Each result was unpredictable, beautiful, and fascinating. She explained how each success had come from trial and error, from embracing mistakes, and from allowing curiosity to guide her actions. One alien instructor, with 4 eyes and a long silver crest, asked skeptically, "But Lyra, aren't these methods inefficient? You could achieve similar results with controlled experiments." Lyra shook her head. "Perhaps. But controlled experiments rarely produce something truly new. Humans discover by exploring the unknown, by failing, and by trying again. They do not fear mistakes, they see them as tools for learning. That is why their creativity is so remarkable." Throughout the demonstration, Lyra encouraged other students to try her methods. Some were hesitant, worried about failure. But as they followed her example, sparks flew, reactions bubbled, and unexpected results appeared. Even the most rigid students were surprised by what they could create when rules were relaxed, when curiosity was allowed to lead. Lyra floated to the center of the auditorium, her glowing skin reflecting the lights. "Humans really do that," she said, smiling. "They experiment boldly, fail often, and learn quickly. Their methods may seem chaotic, but they are powerful. By embracing uncertainty, we can discover things we never imagined." A murmur of agreement spread through the audience. Some students, previously skeptical, began to see the value in her approach. Vorek, still cautious, observed quietly. He had begun to realize that humans' way of thinking was not foolish. It was extraordinary. After the demonstration, students gathered around Lyra, asking questions and examining her experiments. Many wanted to try the human-inspired methods themselves. Small groups began experimenting together, mixing chemicals without precise measurements, adjusting energy fields spontaneously, and allowing reactions to unfold freely. Chaos filled the lab spaces, but creativity and discovery flowed even more freely. One young alien student, who had always been nervous about experimentation, produced a glowing crystalline structure by following Lyra's guidance. She looked at it in amazement. "I never thought I could do this," she said. "It is beautiful!" Lyra smiled warmly. Humans teach us that beauty often comes from failure and curiosity. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That is how we learn, and that is how we discover. Over the next few days, Lyra continued to teach her peers. The academy began to change. Students who had once feared failure now approached experiments boldly, willing to test new ideas and embrace unpredictability. Labs were filled with color, sparks, and laughter. The traditional alien focus on precision and order was balanced by the human-inspired willingness to explore, improvise, and learn from mistakes. Lyra herself continued to experiment. She tried combining alien energy systems with chaotic chemical reactions, creating glowing forms that moved and organized themselves in ways that seemed alive. Each experiment produced surprises. Each success and failure taught her something new. She was learning not just from humans, but from her own curiosity and creativity, inspired by humans' approach. One evening, as Lyra reviewed the day's work, Vorek approached her. "Lyra," he said, his antennas slightly lowered, "I admit, I did not expect your experiments to succeed. The results are remarkable. Perhaps humans are not as primitive as I thought." Lyra smiled softly. "They are extraordinary. They embrace failure, adapt quickly, and explore possibilities we cannot always predict. Their chaos is creativity. Their mistakes are lessons. That is what makes them brilliant." Vorek nodded slowly. "Perhaps there is something we can learn from them. Not just their science, but their way of thinking." Lyra's heart, or the alien equivalent, glowed with pride. She had not only discovered the value of human methods for herself, but she had begun to inspire her peers. The academy was changing, slowly but surely, as students learned to balance precision with curiosity, order with chaos, and rules with improvisation. That night, Lyra recorded in her log, observation. Humans teach us more than science. They teach us a mindset, courage in the face of failure, curiosity in the face of the unknown, and creativity in the face of rules. By learning from humans, we can expand the boundaries of what is possible. Their methods may seem messy, but they are powerful. Humans are not primitive, they are extraordinary. As she drifted to sleep, Lyra imagined Earth. She pictured children building rockets from scrap materials, inventors improvising solutions, and scientists experimenting boldly without fear of failure. She could almost hear the laughter, the shouts of discovery, and the excitement of trying something new without knowing the outcome. Lyra realized that humans' greatest gift was not their technology or their knowledge. It was their approach to life itself. Their courage, curiosity, and willingness to explore the unknown made them unique in the galaxy. And she felt a deep sense of connection to them, as if their spirit of discovery had reached across the stars and touched her own heart. The next day, Lyra continued her work, combining human-inspired methods with alien precision in ways that no one had attempted before. Her experiments produced results that were unpredictable, beautiful, and meaningful. Other students followed her example, discovering new possibilities and learning from failure in ways they had never imagined. For the first time, the Interstellar Academy began to embrace a balance: order and chaos, calculation and curiosity, rules and improvisation. Lyra had shown that humans' way of thinking was not a weakness, it was a strength. And as Lyra floated through her glowing lab, surrounded by sparks, colors, and unexpected discoveries, she whispered to herself, "Humans really do that. And now we can too." Lyra floated through the halls of the Interstellar Academy with a feeling of excitement she had never known before. Her skin shimmered softly, reflecting the glowing lights of the corridors, and her forearms carried small devices she had built during the day. Unlike before, when her experiments were private and cautious, she now moved confidently, ready to share her human-inspired discoveries with anyone who would listen. The Academy had changed since Lyra began embracing human methods. Labs were no longer perfectly arranged and sterile. Students left traces of their experiments everywhere: splashes of glowing liquids, scattered powders, and small sparks from energy reactions. Some instructors were cautious, but most had begun to recognize that creativity often emerged from chaos. Lyra's own lab had transformed into a lively, almost magical space. Glowing orbs floated above tables. Chemicals bubbled and mixed freely, and miniature energy fields twisted and danced unpredictably. Her previous obsession with order had been replaced by curiosity, experimentation, and the excitement of the unknown. She paused to observe a small group of students attempting one of her experiments. They combined chemicals in unusual ways, shook containers without fear, and observed results that no one could predict. When a spark created a small floating crystal, the students cheered. Lyra smiled. Humans had taught them not just science but courage, the courage to try, fail, and try again. Vorek, who had once been her harshest critic, approached her. His antennas twitched as he looked at the lab. "Lyra," he said, his tone quieter than before, "I must admit, your human-inspired methods have changed this academy. The experiments are unpredictable, yes, but the results are extraordinary." Lyra floated closer. "Thank you, Vorek. Humans teach us that failure is not defeat. Their curiosity, creativity, and courage allow them to discover things we might never see if we only follow rules. Chaos can be beautiful and powerful." Vorek nodded slowly. "Perhaps we have underestimated humans. They may be messy, but they are effective. We have much to learn from them." Encouraged by this acknowledgement, Lyra decided to attempt her boldest experiment yet, one that combined everything she had learned from humans. She wanted to demonstrate how curiosity, chaos, and creativity could produce results beyond alien predictions. She prepared her materials, chemicals, energy conduits, and small devices she had designed in the human way. Without precise calculations or measurements, the auditorium was filled again, this time for a demonstration unlike any the Academy had seen. Students and instructors from multiple planets gathered to watch. Many were skeptical, expecting chaos and failure. Lyra smiled to herself. Humans had taught her that the unknown was where true discovery happened. She began by mixing substances without measuring, shaking containers unpredictably, and allowing reactions to unfold naturally. Sparks flew, colors shifted, and small energy pulses moved across the room. Some reactions fizzled, others produced unexpected patterns. The audience watched in silence, unsure what to expect. Then something extraordinary occurred. The individual reactions began to interact with one another, forming a complex, glowing structure that hovered in the air. Orbs of light merged into larger shapes, twisting and spinning in intricate patterns. It was as if the experiment had a life of its own. The audience gasped, mesmerized by the beauty and complexity of the result. Lyra floated forward, her eyes glowing with excitement. "Humans really do that. she said softly, echoing her long-time thought. They experiment boldly, fail often, and adapt quickly. Their curiosity and creativity allow them to see possibilities we might never imagine.
Chaos is not weakness, it is a tool for discovery. Students whispered among themselves, amazed.
Some approached the glowing structure cautiously, touching small holographic interfaces to interact with it. Each touch caused a subtle change, a small shift in the pattern. The structure responded almost as if it were alive. Lyra's heart, or the alien equivalent, thrummed with pride. Humans had inspired something truly remarkable. Vorek stepped closer, his antennas lowered in respect. I understand now, he said. Human methods are not primitive. They are adaptive, creative, and courageous. Their way of thinking can teach even the most advanced civilizations something new. Lyra smiled. Exactly. By embracing their methods, we can explore possibilities beyond our imagination. We can discover things no rule or protocol could predict. After the demonstration, students gathered around Lyra, eager to learn more. They asked questions, experimented under her guidance, and discovered results they had never expected. Some failed spectacularly, producing strange colors or sparks. But each failure was met with excitement and curiosity rather than disappointment. They were learning the human way, to fail, observe, adapt, and try again. Lyra took a moment to reflect. Humans had not only inspired her experiments, they had changed the way the entire academy approached science. Students were more creative, more willing to explore, and more curious than ever before. Labs were alive with activity, laughter, and discovery. The old focus on perfect precision had not disappeared, but it had been balanced by curiosity and chaos. Later that evening, Lyra floated to her quarters and reviewed the day's recordings. The glowing structure from the demonstration still pulsed softly in her mind. She wrote in her log, Conclusion. Humans teach us that curiosity, creativity, and courage are as important as precision and calculation. Chaos can produce beauty. Mistakes can produce insight, and exploration can produce innovation. Humans are not primitive, they are extraordinary. By learning from them, we can expand the boundaries of possibility. As she prepared for sleep, Lyra looked at a holographic transmission of Earth. Children laughed as they built rockets from scrap materials. Inventors tinkered with strange devices, and scientists experimented boldly without fear of failure. She could almost hear their excitement, their laughter, and their shouts of discovery. Lyra smiled. Humans had shown her that the universe was not just to be calculated, measured, and controlled. It was to be explored, experienced, and discovered. Their willingness to embrace the unknown had inspired her, changed the academy, and taught her a lesson that no alien protocol ever could. In the following weeks, Lyra continued to experiment, blending human-inspired chaos with alien precision. She discovered new forms of energy, created miniature self-organizing systems, and developed devices that no one had ever imagined. Her peers followed her example, and the academy flourished in ways that had been impossible before. Even instructors who had once been critical began to embrace the human way. They encouraged students to explore boldly, to fail without fear, and to experiment creatively. The academy had transformed from a place of rigid rules to a place of discovery, curiosity, and excitement. One day, Lyra reflected on her journey. She had arrived at the academy as a curious alien girl, fascinated by humans. She had studied them from afar, tried their methods cautiously, and finally embraced their chaotic, creative way of thinking. Humans had inspired her to experiment boldly, to learn from failure, and to see possibilities beyond calculation. She realized that humans' greatest gift was not their technology or knowledge, it was their mindset. Their curiosity, creativity, and courage allowed them to discover, adapt, and innovate in ways no one else could. And she felt a deep connection to them, as if their spirit of discovery had reached across the stars and touched her own heart. Lyra whispered softly to herself, "Humans really do that." And now so can we. The academy had changed forever. Laboratories were alive with color, sparks, and creativity. Students explored without fear, experimented without hesitation, and discovered without limits. Lyra had shown them that chaos could be beautiful, mistakes could be meaningful, and curiosity could lead to brilliance. As she floated through her glowing lab, watching her peers experiment, laugh, and discover, Lyra felt a sense of fulfillment. Humans had taught her to see the universe in a new way, to embrace the unknown, and to trust the power of curiosity and creativity. Their methods were not reckless, they were brilliant. For the first time, Lyra understood that learning from humans was not just about science, it was about life itself. It was about courage, exploration, and the endless pursuit of discovery. And with that lesson, Lyra knew that the galaxy would never be the same. The stars outside the academy glowed softly, reflecting the shimmer of Lyra's skin. She looked out at the universe filled with infinite possibilities and whispered once more, "Humans really do that, and now the galaxy can too."